The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderman Kotar, Alderwoman Rice, Alderman Gunther, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Martin, Alderman Ornowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderman Odenberg, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Todd, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Narayan, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Navarro, President Reed,
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderwoman Howard, Alderman Rhodey, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Muhammad, 19 present.
Quorum being present, please join me first in a moment of silence for Miss Anita Banks, she was the wife of former State Senator Jet Banks. She celebrated her 95th birthday on December the 3rd, and she passed on January 2nd. And many of you remember when we had her here at the board, and we gave her a resolution on her 90th birthday. So Ms. Banks has done many things all throughout our city, and she indeed will be missed. So join me in a moment of silence. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We dispense with line item 3, introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Also, just want to welcome you all back. I know that when aldermen have time off, it's not really time off because people continue to call morning, noon, and night, New Year's Day, Christmas Eve. So I appreciate all the work that you all do throughout the year, and I'm looking forward to working with you this session. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Happy New Year, Mr. President, and my colleagues. I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year, and hopefully we're off to a good start. I'd like to recognize Board of Education member, Dr. Joyce Roberts, who's in the gallery today.
Alderwoman from 20. Oh, hold on. Alderwoman from 14th, please.
I'd also like to recognize our local law enforcement. Yesterday was National Law Enforcement Day. I'd like to commend them for their efforts in trying to keep our city safe, and pledge that the Board of Aldermen will continue to work with them.
Any further introductions? Alderman from the 22nd.
Sure. Happy New Year, everyone. I'd like to recognize Mr. Jay Shyman from Square in the balcony. Good to see you back at City Hall.
Alderwoman from the 26th.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, my esteemed colleague, Carol Howard. Alderwoman Howard stole my thunder this morning. I was calling to say welcome to a new 26th resident, Dr. Joyce Roberts. Thank you for being here this morning, and to tell you all Happy New Year.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, like to wrap us up?
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. As we're gathered here on December 10th, it was on this day that Elvis Presley recorded Heartbreak Hotel in 1956, but more importantly, this is National Argyle Day, which just happens to be the favorite color of the alderman from the 23rd, Argyle.
Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes, December 13th, 2019.
Alderman from 22nd, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to approve the minutes dated December 13, 2019.
Moved by Alderman from 22nd, seconded by Alderman from 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the aldermen's mailboxes.
We will dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills or resolutions from any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills or resolutions from any of our informal calendars? We dispense with line items 8 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 187, sponsored by Alderman Ornowitz and Alderman Todd, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Department of Human Services to accept a grant award from the St. Louis Community Foundation in the amount of $26,000 for the current fiscal year and to expend those funds for City of St. Louis matter, appropriating such funds and authorizing the Director of the Department of Human Services upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment to expend such funds as permitted by the grant award agreement containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 188, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Comptroller, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making certain findings with respect to the transfer of up to $13,727,769 of excess monies that the City of St. Louis, the owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to be used to make funds available to mitigate rates on an annual basis during the term of the airport use and lease agreement commencing July 1st, 2016, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 189, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderwoman Spencer, and Alderwoman Middlebrook. An ordinance prohibiting the carrying of concealed firearms by persons who are subject to a restraining order or who have been convicted of misdemeanor crime of domestic violence as provided in this ordinance, and the firearm such person is in receipt of has been shipped or transported in interstate foreign commerce as prohibited by Title 18, Section 922, 8 and 9 of the United States Code and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 190, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of Oleatha Avenue and January Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on January Avenue at Oleatha Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling eastbound and westbound on Oleatha Avenue at January Avenue, and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 187. To Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 188. To Public Safety, Board Bill 189. To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 190. That is the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of the Legislation Committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 171, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, Martin, Rice, Navarro, Green, Tyus, Spencer, Middlebrook, Muhammad, Alderwoman Clark, Hubbard, Vaccaro, and Narayan, an ordinance prohibiting the departments, offices, and other divisions of the City of St. Louis, the Mayor's Office, the Board of Aldermen, the offices of the city's Collector of Revenue, Treasurer, Recorder of Deeds, License Collector, Circuit Attorney, Sheriff, and the city's Board of Election Commissioners from asking applicants for employment about their salary history, including wages, benefits, and any other compensation unless otherwise provided therein, and containing a severability clause. That is the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 63, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 2612 Ann Avenue area. Board Bill 87, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, an ordinance approving a blighting study and redevelopment plan for 7202 through 7220 Arsenal Street redevelopment area. Board Bill 122, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance approving the redevelopment plan for 5223 Botanical Avenue area. Board Bill 125, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance approving a blighting study and redevelopment plan for the Evans Avenue, North Newstead Avenue, Pendleton Avenue scatter sites redevelopment area. Board Bill 142, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, an ordinance approving a blighting study and redevelopment plan for 2633 through 35 Allen Avenue redevelopment area. Board Bill 163, sponsored by Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 2127 North 11th Street area. Board Bill 166, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for the 3400 Chippewa and 3809 Louisiana Avenue area. Board Bill 167, sponsored Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 3426 South Compton Avenue area. I'm sorry, let me go back. Board Bill 166, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 3400 Chippewa Street and 3809 Louisiana Avenue area. Board Bill 86, Committee Sub as amended.
88.
I'm sorry, 88. Committee Sub as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Martin, President Reed, Rice, Ornowitz, Pam Boyd, Murphy, Howard, Narayan, Spencer, Ingrassia, Jeffrey Boyd, Gunther, Vaccaro, and Coder. An ordinance repealing Ordinance 69427, approved February 21st, 2013, and pertaining to City Public Works contract, tax increment finance projects, and St. Louis bonding projects, workforce diversity, and establishing apprenticeship, training, construction, workforce development, and a community jobs board, and in lieu thereof, establish a new ordinance pertaining to the same and containing a severability clause and an effective date. Board Bill 143, sponsored by Alderman Todd, an ordinance amending the redevelopment plan for Washington, Vandervander, Enright, Pendleton redevelopment area. Board Bill 145, sponsored by Alderman Todd, an ordinance amending the redevelopment plan for the Vandervander, Finney, Washington, Taylor redevelopment area, approved by Ordinance 69410, dated February the 21st, 2013, by extending the implementation schedule, now calling for projects to be completed by May 1st, 2029. Board Bill 156, sponsored by Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the City of St. Louis, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds in one or more series in a total principal amount of not to exceed $50 million, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute certain documents related thereto, and authorizing and directing the taking of other actions and approval of execution of other documents, or as necessary or desirable to carry out and comply with the intent thereof. Board Bill 164, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance dissolving the special allocation funds for Lafayette Square Historic District 5700 block of Arsenal, and terminating the designation of a portion of the City of St. Louis, Missouri as redevelopment areas, and authorizing certain actions relating thereto. Board Bill 165, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance dissolving the special allocations fund for the Hadley Dean Building redevelopment areas, terminating the designation of certain respective portions of the City of St. Louis, Missouri relating to the redevelopment area, and authorizing certain actions relating thereto. Board Bill 178, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance determining that the tax increment financing plans listed in Exhibit A are making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule for the completion of projects therein. Board Bill 149, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the First Amendment to Automated Teller Machine Concession Agreement between the City and Bank of America, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 176, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the Third Amendment to Fuel System Lease and Use Agreement AL 442 to the St. Louis Lambert International Airport fuel system, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the perfection consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd. I entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Third reading consent.
Board Bill 120, floor sub. Board Bill 132. Board Bill 137. Board Bill 139. And Board Bill 153.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from 10th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingrassia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Todd. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Boyd. 25 aye votes.
By a vote, you stay in the motion. Alderman from 22nd and 3rd read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading report of engrossments.
We have none.
Report of enrollment.
Board Bill 120, floor sub. 132, 137, 139, and Board Bill 153.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Alderman from 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the courtesy resolutions calendar.
For adoption of the courtesy resolution calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 198, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. St. Louis Regional All Hazard Migration Plan 2020 through 2025.
Alderman from the 26th. Alderman from 26, you recognize on the first reading of resolution 198.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I ask
Unanimous consent?
Unanimous consent on resolution number 198, St. Louis Regional All Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2020 through 2025.
Hearing no objection, Alderman from the 26th, would you like to move to adopt resolution 198?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move to adopt resolution number 198.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 26. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 202, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Ornowitz, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Rice, Alderman Ryan.
Can we have some order? I know this is the first day back after the holidays, but we need a little bit of order so we can still get the business done today. Alderwoman from the 14th. Hold on a second. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Resolution 202, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Ornowitz, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Rice, Alderman Ryan, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderwoman Middlebrook, and Alderman Gunther, supporting ballot initiative for Missouri Medicaid expansion.
Alderwoman from the 20th, you recognize on first reading of Resolution 202.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to request unanimous consent on Resolution 202, supporting a ballot initiative for the expansion of Medicaid.
Hearing no objection, please proceed, Alderwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our Director of Health, Dr. Eccles, and Mr. A.J. Bockelman of Healthcare for All came down to our Health Committee before break and was very instructive about the very significant cost of not expanding Medicaid to the residents of the state of Missouri, in particular within the city of St. Louis. We have almost 30% of our residents living at or below poverty, and not in a failure of the state of Missouri to expand Medicaid and take federal dollars to provide much needed health care access to residents in the state of Missouri and within our city is a failure on all of our part. And this resolution expresses the intent of this body to support the ballot initiative of expanding Medicaid. And with that, I close, Mr. President, and ask for unanimous consent.
Would you like to make a motion to adopt? You already have unanimous consent.
Move to adopt Resolution 202.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 20th, entertained seconded by the Alderman from the 9th and the Alderman from the 14th. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make sure that my name was added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. And the Alderman from the 28th. The Alderman from the 26th, the Alderman from the 18th. Alderman from the 18th, would you like to be added?
To the resolution?
Yep. Alderman from the 18th, Alderman from the 19th. Would someone like to just make a motion? Yeah, Alderman from the 14th.
I would like to make a motion we embank resolution number 202.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd and the 21st and a little area. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carried. Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 202, and it's been embanked. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
That is extent of first reading of resolutions.
Second reading.
We have none.
Under miscellaneous unfinished business, we had Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to refer Board Bill 107 back to the Public Safety Committee.
And it's on the informal calendar, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's been moved. Please restate your motion one more time, Alderman, for everyone.
Mr. President, I would like to refer Board Bill 107 back to the Committee on Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 21st that we refer Board Bill 107 back to Public Safety. It's been seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, Board Bill 107, please assign it back to Public Safety.
So noted. That is the extent of miscellaneous and unfinished business.
Announcements.
Wednesday, January the 15th, 2020, Health and Human Services will have a meeting at 10 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Rules Committee will meet at 10 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Public Safety will have a meeting at 11 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. And Friday, January the 17th, it's a full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the Chambers. That is the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? On from 22nd.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I would like to wish an early birthday to my esteemed colleague from the 10th. His birthday is January the 13th, this Monday.
Uh-oh. Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to wish maybe a happy birthday to my compatriot from the 22nd. We share our birthday, but we don't share the same parents, we found out. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to wish a belated happy birthday to former Alderman Frank Williamson. His birthday was January 2nd, same as mine, so we also share the same birthdays.
Oh. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 12th.
President, members of the board, I'd be remiss and get in trouble if I didn't forget to mention that my wife and I celebrated our 36-year anniversary the other day.
Oh, wow. Wow. Congratulations. That's a milestone. Alderman from the 28th.
One on? There we go. I just would like to let everyone know that the St. Louis Zoo is looking for community input on both the zoo location in the city as well as their new North Campus. And so they're going to be having some community input sessions, and you can go online to stlzoo.org/input sessions to find out more, but they're going to be on January 18th and January 23rd, and there's more details about how you can RSVP for those, but they're really looking to make some significant improvements and want as much community engagement as possible. So I invite everyone to let everyone know and show up if you can. Thank you.
Okay. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 3rd.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Just make this quick and easy. Just wanted to say this is a brand new year for us all here on the board. So just me personally, for anybody that I may have pissed off last session.
There's no such thing.
No.
We don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, anybody who I may have made disgruntled over the last session, irritated, we all sometimes have that hard-working relationship where we into it with each other. Just wanted to send my condolences and apologies and say this is a new year. Hopefully I can be forgiven and we can move forward and continue to work together, because this year will be no different. We will continue to work together and have our little tug-of-wars. Thank you.
Yeah. And to your point, Alderman from the 3rd, that tug-of-war is actually important. I mean, that's how we get to the root of these issues, and that's how we come up with better legislation. It's so important that we have the discussions that we have, and people air their differences. I mean, without that, our legislation wouldn't touch as many people in a positive way as it does. Alderman from the 19th, and then Alderman from the 26th. Right. Alderman from the 19th.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to acknowledge, just in case you didn't have an opportunity, that we also lost former Assistant Superintendent of Public Schools, Julius Dix. Wow. He passed last Thursday, and his funeral is this Sunday at 1 o'clock at Washington AME Church. For those who are not familiar, he was one of the high-ranking managers of our public school when we had the Banneker District and all of that. And even though we had disproportionate funds for North St. Louis for education, him, Samuel Shepard, and many others made sure that the children did get the attention that they needed and all of the other things aside from just actual ABCs to make sure that they had an opportunity to be good citizens and move forward in this society. And I wanted to give condolences to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman from 26.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I just wanted to remind everybody that back in December, we passed the resolution 189 in bank to make January National Sex Trafficking Awareness Month in the city, along with the state of Missouri. They're having their day on the 21st. On Tuesday, I'll be traveling up there, and I hope all of you all can join me, or some of you all can join me. And I would like to thank President Reed and his office for helping to arrange National Sex Trafficking Awareness Day in the City Hall. It'll be on the 31st, Friday the 31st, so hopefully you all can support us. Then we have a little challenge we're going to be doing through the departments to see who can donate the most personal hygiene products for our ladies that we secure out of these tragic situations. So again, be aware, share all this information with your constituents, keep praying for these ladies and men that are victims of this tragedy, and hopefully I'll see you all there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And let's congratulate the Alderwoman from the 26th on her anniversary, right? It was a big one, right? Yeah, it was a big one, I heard.
My anniversary was January the 1st, 2020. We celebrated 14 years of marriage, me and my esteemed colleague and amazing Alderwoman of the 5th Ward, Tamika Hubbard's brother, Rodney Hubbard, and I celebrated 14 years on January the 1st. Thank you.
Congratulations. Finally, I just want to wish my wife a happy birthday. Her birthday was January 7th, so she puts up with me each and every day, so I thank her for that. So let's give her a round of applause and congratulations on her birthday. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to excuse the Alderman from the 4th Ward due to necessary absence.
Been moved by the Alderman from 22nd. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from 10th and Alderman from the 27th. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 22nd, recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adjourn until next week, January the 17th.
Moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned.